Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Photo Mishmash. This one being broadcast live July 15th, 2020. We have to talk about the big announcements from Canon. We knew they were coming. We had lots of leaks, lots of little information, even officially from Canon. Now we've got the real deal, the R5 and the R6. They're out. All of the specs have been published. And then a few more specs have been published if people have deep dived into the manual. We're going to sit down. We're going to chat about that. We're not the hype kind of guys. I put as the headline that you're seeing right now, overhyped, underwhelmed. In certain respects, absolutely. In other respects, these look like fantastic cameras. So we're going to talk about all of that, plus the two new f11 lenses. Is that interesting to you? And I need to complain a little bit about Windows and chat about whatever else is on our mind. I think there's at least one other thing on the list that we'll get to in the show notes. But as always, or I shouldn't say as always, because we did have a break last week. And the week before that, Steve, you were just MIA. We forgive you, though. You had some good reasons. But I am so happy.
It was nuts in my house. You would not want to see what was going on in the background last 2 weeks ago.
Well, now we're all kind of intrigued. What is happening?
Going on, man?
Talk about a teaser there. No, my kid, my oldest stepdaughter, her husband, and their 3 kids bought their first house. And
awesome.
There was a 2-week period of time between getting out of their rental and moving into the new home. And so they were living with us. And the kids are 3 years old, 7 years old, and 9 years old. And Wednesday night was just like all hands on deck. Everybody was here. Everybody was hyper because they got to live with Grammy and Papa for a couple weeks. And I contacted you guys early in the day. I said, "Look, man, it's just not going to happen."
Totally fine.
Anyway, yeah, it's been an absolutely crazy 2 weeks, but I've missed you guys, and it's great to be back.
Nice. Well, we're so glad to have you back. That, of course, is Steve Scurich. He's a professional photographer in the Cincinnati area, and we are glad to have you on, Steve. And you can follow him at his Instagram, which is linked right down below, along with his professional Facebook page. Thanks for joining us. And David Carr, how have you been?
Good, man. Since 2 days ago when I saw you last,
That's right.
I'm doing well. Just got back to back in action, working on a tile job today. So
Nice.
it was really nice to get away from everything and just do a photo tour. I really enjoyed that. So it's a little bit hard getting back to reality, but it's all right.
I know. And it's hard. 1 minute you are a rock star photo tour leader, and the next you are tiling a bathroom, or in my case, walking the dogs and picking up their poop. So
yeah, it keeps you humble.
Glamorous life.
I was telling Toby, David Carr, you didn't hear this. It was before the show started and before you logged on. For the last 2 weeks, I have not had a single home to shoot. I was shooting, 2 to 3 homes a week for a while.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it just completely dried up. And I'm in a pretty new market for myself, so it's really been difficult for me to go out and market myself because you can't go into offices or anything.
Sure.
So anyway, I've turned into a regular Bob Vila. Like every single morning I get up early and I have this whole list of home improvement projects, both at our house and now at the kids' house.
Good.
And which is great. It's kept me so busy. But by 6 o'clock at night, my body just absolutely hates me and I practically pass out.
Yeah, that's the thing. It just wears me out,
Yeah.
So, but that's all right. It's, I tell you what, it was amazing to be in Glacier National Park last weekend, and we hiked for like 6 hours one morning up the Avalanche Creek, and I didn't break a sweat at all the whole time. I came back, I was like, I didn't feel like I needed a shower or anything. I was completely, and man, I come back to Georgia, and it's like I couldn't even go get the mail without breaking a sweat.
We're at that right now too. I go out and I go once around the lawn for some trimming, and I'm just dripping. I need to change.
It's awful. It's so bad. It's so thick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we had some lovely weather. We were on a socially distance appropriate workshop in Glacier National Park. We had fantastic conditions, really, really nice.
Beautiful.
It was stressful for me. I got there a little bit early because I knew the Going to the Sun Road wasn't open yet. For those who don't know, Glacier National Park is gorgeous. It's very large. But the only way to see the exciting stuff is to drive the Going to the Sun Road, which wasn't open yet. This was the latest it has opened in the road's history. And it's partly because of the amount of snow they got, but mostly because of all of the craziness of 2020. And there was a chunk of period where they should have been plowing. Not that I'm blaming, I'm just saying they weren't plowing because of COVID. So, but they opened Monday. And we were able to extend the tour a little bit, and almost everybody was able to do a little bit of magic. And we spent a full day on the Going to the Sun Road. And I didn't say follow David Carr on Instagram yet. You should follow David Carr on Instagram and check out his last couple of posts, all from Glacier. Stunning images that just really showcase that park so nicely.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Those are great.
It's a great place.
Yeah. So very, very nice. And chat room, hello to you all. Thank you so much for joining us again. As you often do, many of you are sharing your weather reports. And honestly, it looks like most of the country is just disgusting right now. Absolutely disgusting. I'm very happy here at Seattle. It's hot for us today. It's 80, but there's no humidity. God. And down here in the basement, I almost have goose pimples. So just, not to brag.
I do fun here at the house, but that's because the AC's cranked on to like 72.
Yeah, I'm burning up right now. I'm going to go turn my ceiling fan on when we get to the image reviews.
Newly installed. Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I do want to, this was on my mind, and then I just saw Crystal say hi in the chat. Crystal has been a longtime follower of the channel, and I started following her Instagram years ago. She is a fantastic photographer. She has some of the most gorgeous children I've ever seen on the face of this earth. And she recently had one of her pictures selected as the cover for Click magazine.
Oh,
and that's her daughter, and that's her photo. And it's just absolutely fantastic. I love it, Crystal. So
that's wonderful.
So well deserving, and you should go check out her Instagram feed as well, because it's full of just lots of really cute kids, hers, and they're nice pictures. So
awesome.
I just was excited to see that, and congratulations. Just wanted to kind of give a public shout out. Congratulations, Crystal.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, you guys talked about your favorite photographers.
Yeah.
And I didn't really put a list together, but oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank on his name. This is totally embarrassing. The guy that we were talking about before the show, before I told you I couldn't make it on the show.
David Carr? David Carr?
Toby Gelston? No, okay. Yeah. Nick Page. Did you want to pick Nick?
Scurich? Yeah, Nick Page. Sorry.
Yeah. He was mine. I know you're too busy to watch the show.
Yeah, I saw that, and I wanted to give a shout out in case he ever watches this show. It could be awesome to have him in the chat room someday or as a guest on the show.
I'd love to have him on. I think he'd be up for it.
I've become quite a fanboy of Nick Page. He's amazing, and he's been posting some really cool stuff. He always does. But his work is just awesome. So I kind of just wanted to throw that in there just as a throwback to a couple weeks ago. I didn't get to get my people in there.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if you wanted to do that, and I know we talked about Nick, and there's a lot of great photographers out there, a lot of them, but Nick seems to just be so consistent and frequent, which is just really impressive.
Well, he seems to take a complicated scene and find a lot of simplicity in it, which I really appreciate. And the storytelling is always very three-dimensional. But this one picture, that wave shot, is ridiculous. But keep going down real quick and go to the aurora. It's very pink and purple. And then there you go on the right, as you scroll side to side, you can see the Milky Way. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Very nice. Very nice.
But no, his work is amazing. And Peter Lick was a huge influence on me when I was first starting my business. I stepped into one of his galleries, had no idea who he even was, and I was just blown away. That's when I wanted to make images really, really big and do landscape photography. So just had to throw that in there real quick.
Very
awesome.
Cool.
Very well. Very good. I see a couple of questions already in chat. That's fantastic. Roy, you're in there. Thank you so much for doing that. He is collecting those questions. So if you write them down, put a little Q in front, he'll collect them, and we will get to them at the end of the show. And sometimes we see them as they're going by and it fits for the discussion, and we just start chatting about them. Then it's kind of a relaxed show. I mean, that's why we got alcohol on the table, for the relaxing part. Hey, guys, what you drinking? gentlemen?
I have a non-alcoholic old fashioned.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
No, yeah, what is that? That's all right.
It's tea. No.
That's a Pepsi with an orange slice.
Yeah. Actually, I forgot about it. It does have alcohol in it. It's good.
I forgot. How many have you had already?
Well, I just finished a tile job. I didn't drink on the job, so.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I meant for half of those tiles to be at a diamond shape.
Yeah, exactly.
That was the plan. Yeah.
Shut up.
Ordered 4 times as many tiles as you needed.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Similar to you, Carr, I've got Manhattan right here.
Nice.
In a single old-fashioned glass, and that's kind of my go-to drink. It's one of my favorites, and
yeah, and you make it. Steve makes the best Manhattans. They're so good.
They are good.
I'm always tweaking the recipe, but I can make a pretty mean Manhattan. They're good.
Yes, I agree.
Wow.
I'm drinking a IPA of some sort. Chris offered to make me a gin and tonic, but we got some beers in the fridge that need to be drunk up. So
yeah,
there we go. It's nice and cool and refreshing for this hot day.
Yeah, that's great.
Seattle of you to be drinking IPA.
I know, it does fit. I got a flannel down here somewhere that I'll put on.
Okay, good.
In a minute. And
it's great.
And the hair.
The hair's looking good, man. It's, I think you should just keep that party going.
I don't know. So this is what I do. Let me just share this. The real. After I take a shower, I put a headband on. John McEnroe style. Come on.
There you go.
Here we go. To keep the hair from tickling my forehead.
Man.
Well, there's a lot of forehead to tickle, so I can't.
That's true.
That's kind of an 80s drummer look right there. It's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, maybe I should get something other than Nike though. I should say like just rock or or maybe I should get some branded headbands.
You should
get a tattoo hairline.
A blonde tattoo hairline. That'd show up well.
Yeah.
That would show up well. Yeah. I think I said this on the Instagram story announcing this show. I really think I'm going to let Chris at this tomorrow with buzzers. So we'll see.
Go. Oh, dude, let it go, man.
It's just look at this. What is happening over here?
Yeah, no, I got the same thing. I kind of cough this up and stuff, but man, when I let this just hang down, it's ridiculous. My hair hasn't been this long since 4th grade. I called my barber 2 weeks ago. I had an appointment, and I said, look, I'm just going to let this thing grow. Until they get this COVID thing under control, I'm just going to let Teen Wolf go.
You're keeping shaved, though. So
I only shave for the show, though. My wife gets all excited. She's like, oh, tomorrow's Wednesday. So that means you're going to shave, right, for Mishmash?
That's funny.
It's all right. Renee should thank us then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, before we lose our audience, but this is the kind of show this is. So if you're watching and you are unhappy, then stop watching. That's okay.
Exactly.
We want to talk quick recaps of stuff that has happened. Honestly, not a lot because, as David said, he and I were traveling last week on a photo workshop. There was a pen tutorial that went out from Allie, really just kind of sharing her shooting this really cool old building with her infrared camera. So they are on their epic multi-cross country RV road trip and have been to some really cool spots.
They're going to be here on Friday.
Oh,
that's right. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, they arrive. I confirmed it with Dave today because their timing, you just don't know with the road trip thing, but
yeah,
they're going to get here about midday Friday and spend a couple nights with us.
That's
nice.
Awesome.
Really,
that's
really
great.
Cool to see that.
That's great. So it'll be just like having the kids back in the house.
Just when I thought I was out, I got pulled back in.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, that'll be good. And then the only other content that I put out was today I shared in a couple of different places some tips for photographing the comet because we started talking about this on the glacier trip. It never was high enough above the horizon for us with the mountains and the situation we were in. But here in Seattle, I knew there was a lot of different opportunities. So I went out last night to try photographing. And it's pretty cool. About an hour after sunset, it showed up. First, what I just kept doing is taking a picture with a pretty wide angle lens in the direction that I knew it was. I wasn't exactly sure where it was going to line up. Mm-hmm. There are some apps. And again, I've got a post on photorec.tv and it's linked down in the show notes. All the articles and stuff that we're going to talk about is linked down in the show notes, along with these guys' great Instagram and Facebook pages. I then would just scan through the image, zoomed in a little bit, and I saw it. And then I looked up And one of the things that happens is you look at your bright screen out there and you look up and all the stars seem pretty faint. But if you keep away from the back of your bright screen camera for a few minutes, your eyes really adjust pretty quickly. And I saw it. And it is cool. If you have the opportunity to go out, I would try. The viewing gets a little bit better a little later this month, meaning it'll be a little bit higher above the horizon, which is really helpful, mostly for folks kind of in the southern half of the country, or I should say in the southern half of the northern hemisphere. But you find it between the Big Dipper and the North Star, kind of right in the middle. And it is, there's no mistaking it when you see it. And so then I photographed it with a bunch of different lenses. I think somewhere in the general range, I liked what I shot with the 24, but then I also cropped that a bit. And I'm not sure how to equate to what kind of focal length that was, somewhere in the maybe 40, 50. I shot some with the 85-1.8, that really nice portrait lens. I really like those. I think that's a nice blend of detail of the comet, but I don't get quite as much landscape with it being as high in the sky as it is. And just like when we shoot the stars and teach shooting the stars, you rarely want a picture of just the sky full of stars. You want some kind of context of where you are, what the landscape looks like. So if you can find some interesting foreground, that would be good. But all of the little details about all of that are there. And I will say, don't say, oh, it gets better later in the month, I'm just going to wait. Who knows? You might, wherever you live, might have 5 cloudy days in a row. So get out, see it, view it, try to photograph it a little bit. It's honestly not too hard. And post the results. We want to see them.
Yeah,
definitely.
Steve Shuey, you remember him, Toby?
Yep. From Alaska.
Yeah, from Alaska. He posted a really cool comet shot a couple days ago on his Instagram.
On his Instagram?
Know if he's in this chat room, but he does a lot of work down in the San Diego area, and he had a pretty nice picture.
Cool.
Yeah, I have yet to see it. I'm excited to go look at it.
Let's see. Here is Steve Shuey's. Very nice. Yep.
Yeah. I like it because, like you were just talking about, when you have something of reference with the foreground, he's got a nice amount of foreground, and all the sky and stuff. It just kind of, it's great. And he kind of discredited himself. He said something like, "This was the best I could do," or something like that. I commented, I thought it was fantastic. Yeah.
It's quite nice. So he was using the 70-200 out at about 115 millimeters, and ISO 2000 f2.8 6 seconds. Great, nice. All right. So yeah, definitely a cool thing, and as you probably have heard, it won't be back for about 6,800 years. So. I don't know what version of the Canon mirrorless will be on at that time, but take the time now. Whatever camera you got.
The R5 R2 will be introduced right at that time.
But you can bet on like one of these forums, people will be arguing about it still.
Right? Yeah, totally.
Just through their brains, they'll be like, they won't even have to say anything. But
that's kind of scary. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking telepathic forum arguing DP review.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
Oh, gosh. All right. Let me check notes, but I think that's about all that I wanted to get out of the way before we dive into. Oh, I know one other thing. B&H and Amazon both have great deals on SD cards. It feels like it's the 5th time in the last 2 months, but there are some hard drives included in there, some USB drives, micro SD cards. Link in the show notes again to both B&H and Amazon. Your use of those links greatly helps out this channel, and you save a few bucks picking something up. They got a 12 terabyte backup drive. It's a little slower. It's it's one of those Western Digital kind of my books, but man, that's going to set you up for a long period of time. You don't need a backup drive to be especially fast. And I think it's like $180. I mean,
wow.
It is very, very affordable. So definitely take some time and look through those. Again, linked right down below in the show notes.
Hey, can I quickly interject a little bit of advertising for Toby and Photorec TV? For those who don't know, there's a general Amazon link to Toby's Amazon link or whatever. I saved it as a bookmark on my browser as Amazon Toby. And then I've got B&H Toby, but I haven't been shopping at B&H too much lately. But Amazon we're shopping at more than ever, as I suspect many of you are as well. So, you know, ask Toby for that link or link it on the show notes or something, because every single thing that we purchase, we click on Amazon Toby, whether it's toilet paper or a camera product, and he gets credit for that. And I think it's really good during these times that we support, you know, people that we care about. And I think people are shopping on Amazon more than ever right now, myself included, as I just mentioned. And everything we buy, Toby gets some credit for, and I feel really good about that.
Oh, I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. It doesn't cost anybody anything extra, and I do really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's dive into the part of the show that is a lot of fun. We missed last week. People were excited. They started sending images in last week. They've been sending some in this week. We want to make sure we have enough time to really talk about the EOS R5 and R6 and those lenses as well. So we are going to do a little bit faster through these images, but we're going to go through our image review now. But first, I need to stop sharing my screen and reshare. Hang on a sec.
You want me to do a commercial or something?
There we go. Okay. Thank you. Just almost needed you to do commercial.
I should have a Toby commercial during that.
Do you have term life insurance?
I should have been doing something during that time. That's when
you can save 15% or more with Geico.
Yeah, that's right. It's either going to be a prescription drug or a law firm that deals in litigation against prescription drug companies. So, one or the other.
Yeah.
It's rough out there. Yeah. This image looks familiar to me, but do either of you remember talking about it at all?
No.
Mm-mm.
This is a tremendous image. I would remember this, but I don't remember talking.
Okay. Yeah. This is pretty cool. This is from Diane Frankenfield. Star Trails with Labyrinth at Calico Basin, and I'm not sure where that is, but this is a star trail shot. This is showing that it was 30 seconds. So I am assuming, Diane, you did star trails with stacking. So you took multiple 30-second shots and then stacked them together to get this end result. And I'd say it's pretty darn cool, especially when this is this labyrinth, this earthworks kind of drawing down here on the ground that is a mirror of the star trails. It's very, very cool.
That's cool.
A couple things that I noticed right away that I'd love you to work on a little bit, and it can be hard in some of these situations, but you have just a little bit of glow right at the edge of the horizon, especially if we get in close. We can see that we just have this little white, bright line that is kind of a sign of either compositing or some editing and sharpening that has pushed this just a little past where I think it should be pushed.
Yeah, I think what's happened there is, and I did a tutorial on this a couple of years ago, if you're using an increase in clarity and even sharpness, it spreads the pixels. So if that line is, say, 1 pixel wide, the joint between the mountains where it meets the sky, and you apply clarity, it will increase that to 4 or 5 pixels wide. And that's where you start to see that band right there. So that's an important thing. When I first looked at this shot, obviously it has huge impact, and I thought it's a little too bright for me, because you still want it to be reflective of the fact that it's a nighttime scene and these are stars. But if you're gonna really increase some of that contrast and decrease the exposure, you're probably going to start noticing that line even more. So it becomes a bit of a balance in terms of how much sharpening do you do, and how much blur can you get away with.
There was a comment in chat too. I agree. The darkening down a little bit to make it feel a little bit more reflective of the night is good. What do you guys think about this triangle of other foreground creeping in?
Yeah, I noticed that immediately. Just, I always tend to start in the corners and work my way around and then into the photo. So I noticed that. I feel like it could probably go away. It's not really serving the photo, in my opinion. The other 3 corners, I feel like, there's really not a whole lot that bothers me. But I just think that could probably be taken out.
Yeah, you could do what you're doing there, Toby, or you could crop it out and put the North Star kind of in the upper left third. And then if you can get away with it, I don't know this scene, but it might be, a pretty famous scene. If you could get away with it and flip it around, then, you'll have all those leading lines of what's going on the ground and stuff kind of leading up into, to me, that looks much better. But if this is a place that a lot of people are going to recognize that, hey, this doesn't exist in this sort of view, then you can't flip it. But I still like the horizontal look. I don't think I would have cropped it quite that square.
Oh yeah,
maybe just come right where that the tip of that little hill, or I don't know.
There.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe something like that. There
you go.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
That's quite nice.
I did like it flipped around if you can get away with it. Of course, so I'm going to have a drink because I take a sip every time I say flip a picture.
I did too. Man. I did too in chat room. If you're following along, it's tradition. All right, we're moving on. Diane, nice picture. Thanks for sending it in. We're moving along. Andrew has adorable little bunny and field of greens and little purples. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
One of the things I keep meaning to talk about this in pen and write about this is I love using out of focus foreground elements to kind of frame my subject. I think it can be a neat way to just add some depth. As you were saying with Nick Page's work, it feels very 3D. And, we're looking at these images on a flat screen, flat monitor, or a print on the wall. And any way that we can really get across a sense of depth is good. And I think foreground elements slightly out of focus can help. That said, this is really just covering so much of his little body that I feel bad for him.
Yeah, that's the only, it's a cute shot. The colors are great. I mean, I'm glad that there are flowers, that it's not just the green and the bunny. So it's like, I feel like the elements were there to make a great little photo. I do feel like maybe if you had moved to the left a little bit and not cut off so much of the bunny with the flowers in front, it just, because I hear what you're saying. I actually love it when there's something in the foreground that is out of focus, but it has to be in the right place. And there's a certain correctness to that. I feel like maybe just moving to the left a little bit, or maybe going all the way around on the other side of the bunny. Although who knows what the situation was. This little guy might've been hopping around, but at the same time, it's just, it's like photographically, like technically, I think everything is there. It looks pretty sharp to me. The color balance looks good, but it just feels like the composition in camera I think could have improved.
Yeah. I will say this, Andrew, give you props for it. Feels like we're down on bunny level, and that's great. That's one way to really kind of make your work stand out. It's not like I'm standing there walking around on this nature walk and looking down at little bunnies around my feet. I'm down at their level. Steve, anything else you want to add?
Well, I think the only problem I have is that one green leaf that is intersecting the neckline of the bunny. So I would take this into Photoshop and I would remove that. And then I would probably do a little work on that neckline because it's a very distinct, kind of break in the fur right there. And so, you kind of just minimize that. And then the distraction just kind of goes away to me.
That definitely helps. And maybe, I wonder if you just come down from the top. I don't know that it needs to be cropped quite that way. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it just felt like the eye should be. Yeah, it just seems like that.
Yeah.
The information above that didn't seem as necessary, in my opinion.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice scene, Andrew. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on. Tanya regularly submits heavily composites and photoshopped images. And I know from following her on Instagram that this is not, right? I think that's what I saw. This Luna moth is sitting on her face. Is that right?
Wow.
Tanya, are you around to confirm or deny that?
I think I saw her name in the
she chat. Is in the is in the chat room.
Okay.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah, I don't like bugs, so I don't think I would have done that. But,
you won't go smooching big moths.
I mean, even though I know it's not going to hurt me, they're magnificent and kind of creepy to me. But
yeah, I feel you.
But it's a cool image. I love that she's upside down, and that if it was just her upside down, just without the moth, it might be kind of like, well, it's be fine. It's art, but this just adds a whole new element of mystery and story to the photo, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I know Tanya has never seen Silence of the Lambs, and there were some people that pointed out some of the similarities to that, and maybe subconsciously you saw it sometime in your past. It's interesting how things like that can stick with us. But I do think that the upside down kind of view really does make this interesting and a little different. The eyes are very intense, but I just keep coming back to that moth sitting right there on your mouth.
Yeah.
I think this is awesome. And quite frankly, Tanya, I'm sure you're listening, I'd love to see more black and white work from you, because this is really, really cool. I've been a fan of your work from day one, and I love all your color images and stuff, but I'm a sucker for a good black and white image, and especially something like this. You're so drawn. I actually like the tension between the moth and her eyes.
Yeah.
Constantly, I can't look away from the picture because I'm constantly caught right in the middle of it. And that's a good thing. I would probably work on the catchlight in the eyes, though. It's kind of long and narrow and kind of bends. I'm not sure exactly what was going on with the lighting, but I would work on just doing something a little bit more simple with the catchlight, because that starts to get a little distracting. But really, the only people that are kind of going to notice that are people that look at portrait photography a lot, or kind of critique photos the way we do.
Yeah.
But it's a stunning image. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and I love the square crop. I think it just, I love square crops when they're right, and it just it works really well.
Just works. Yeah. Gentlemen, either of you, opinion about this? We've got really nice hair framing all the way around, and then we do have this kind of empty space here, darker, with a little bit, I don't know, maybe a leaf or something you're laying on the ground.
I think that's still maybe some of her hair, or maybe it's a leaf. I don't know. I like some texture over there. It would just be a big black, sort of emptiness.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
Yeah. I wonder if it wouldn't be, I'd like to see a little bit more hair over here. So we had kind of such a symmetrical image, except for this. So I'd like to see that worked in, but I think that's pretty minor. Pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Tanya. And she did confirm in chat, not a composite. So if that gives anybody the heebie-jeebies, you let Tanya know, not me. All right. We've got Paul Anderson's some kind of hawk. I feel bad. I don't know exactly what kind of hawk, but it's a hawk. Yeah.
That is the great, magnificent spotted hawk of the Northwest, I think.
I believe University was an old wooden ship from the
Oh, boy. All right. So look at this. This is shot at 840 millimeters. This was with the Sony 200 to 600 plus the 1.4 teleconverter, and at f9, 1/2000th of a second, ISO 8000. And really nice. We have a little bit of out of focus here on the left side of the wing. I think that's out of focus. I don't think that's motion blur at 1/2000th of a second. But what I love is under this wing, we follow the wing, we come to the eye.
Yeah.
And some little bit that, I don't know, is that a defining feature of this type of bird? If it is, okay. If it's not, I might take that out.
It's a bird. It's a bird booger.
Yeah, they're bad.
Wasn't that your nickname in college, Steve? Bird booger.
No, my nicknames in college were far worse than that.
All right. So I just did a quick correction of that. Again, almost every time that I've cloned something out during the show, Steve said I would do this in Photoshop, and honestly, I agree. when we're not crunched for time, take it into Photoshop. Use those healing tools. They do such a better job.
Well, and you saw when Toby first highlighted that, it chose from the bird's wing to fill that in.
Yeah.
As opposed to the white space. I would almost guarantee in Photoshop it would probably get it right on the first time. But yeah, I do any of that kind of changing. I like to work in Photoshop for that.
Yeah. I would wonder, like, I'm wondering if there's any sky detail that could be recovered. Well, it doesn't look like there's much.
No, just starts to turn blue, and there's a little smudge down here that's probably a dust spot on your sensor, Paul. I say that because I also own a Sony.
Yeah. I mean, because I really like the bird. I like the gesture of the bird. I like like you said, the wing coming down to the eye. I don't know. I just don't know if maybe it's just great just with a sort of white sky, sort of like a cloudy looking sky. I just didn't know if there was anything more to add to it.
So this is one of those times where it might be worthwhile to change your background color that you're working around. When we change this to white and we set it back to what it was like when it came in, you can see that it's definitely not white. There's this kind of like light blue to it.
Yeah, sure.
And you could bring your highlights up and say, do I want to go very much closer to pure white background if there's nothing too interesting there. And I think that's a personal taste to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The good thing is you got it sharp. It looks like the eye is sharp. The fact that the tail is a little out of focus, or I mean the wing, it almost doesn't bother me so much just because of the, I don't know, just because of what it is, and it's not grossly out of focus. But
yeah, nice. Steve, anything to add before we move on?
No, I liked a little bit of color in there. You had done a couple of edits back. It was nice because it was kind of graduated. I know you didn't do a filter or anything. It's just the way the sky was, and I thought it looked really nice. It added a little bit more depth to it. Otherwise, you've got this kind of it's obviously a three-dimensional bird, but it looks kind of flattened out on just pure white.
Yeah.
So I liked where you had it with the blue, and it kind of went a lot lighter in that lower right corner. Yeah.
One thing I just noticed, we're going to move on in just a second here. I'm just brushing on just a little bit of a green cast to some of these wings that I don't think is natural. And so I'm just brushing on a little bit warmer temp and tint to the right a little. Kind of, again, don't always think of this as adding red. You can also think of this as you move away from that color of removing that color. And we could also go down into the color HSL panel and reduce the green saturation.
Yeah, that's a good move because that green isn't the most pleasing tone. So getting rid of that is good.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Robert Forehand is a local Seattleite and also volunteers down at Mount Rainier National Park, which gives him an opportunity for some pretty cool images. When we're on workshops, we often tell people that we're at these gorgeous scenic locations, and we say, don't always wait until the scene is empty, because people can give you not only our viewer a body to jump into and kind of imagine being there and what it's like for them, but also a sense of scale.
Yeah.
And you've got these two hikers making their way. You don't even really see the trail until you notice the hikers, and then you feel like, okay, they're coming around this bend here and wondering what they're greeted with around this corner, and this massive mountain and glacier sitting in front of them just is pretty epic.
Toby, I wonder if you can humor me for just a minute here with the crop tool.
Yeah.
Freeform crop. Come down from the top just below that mountain line so you don't see the sky. There you go. And then come up from the bottom to where I want to use the trail that they were hiking on as their leading line. And then come over from the left to crop out that second dark patch. So go kind of right into the snow maybe. Keep going. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
Oh, right there?
Yeah. Just kind of want to see what that looks like with the scale. Yeah, it needs a little more space at the bottom.
Yeah.
But I think it can draw a little bit more attention to the people, because the first time, at first glance on this, I didn't even notice the people looking out there. There you go. And then I would probably clean up, you know, the stuff in the lower right, left corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now you've got a kind of a cropped in story that talks about these people on this trail looking out at this scene, and you don't know how tall that mountain even is because the sky's been cropped out.
It goes on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty cool. I wonder real quick, I love the clouds and all of that. Let's see if we bring a graduated filter down over that, and I love the clouds, but if we dehaze just a bit, I want those rocks to stand out a tiny bit more. And I also feel like this too has a little bit of a blue cast to it. So I'm going to warm it just the tiniest amount. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah. Very nice, Robert.
I like it.
Where was this taken? He says 14,411 feet, which sounds like Pikes Peak to me, but
or Mount Rainier.
Oh, that's Rainier.
Yep.
Wow, I didn't realize Rainier is that tall.
It's a big mountain.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been looking beautiful last couple of days. All right. That's actually one of the shots. I'm really excited. You know, pay attention to my Instagram sometime real soon here. Yeah, I got these comet shots, but I also found at this spot a really neat shot looking way back that makes Seattle. I shot this with the 100 to 400 out at 400. That makes Seattle look like it's sitting on Rainier from this distance.
Oh,
so I'm
cool.
excited to share that.
That's cool.
All right. All right. We've got this Heather White shot of this bee coming in to the flower. And at the moment, it's not, let me go. It looks sharper to me when I saw, oh, there it goes.
Okay.
Took a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why it took so long to load. That makes me feel better about the Windows machine I have sitting over here when my own iMac takes so long in Lightroom. But just really nice moment captured.
Yeah, very much so.
A couple of things that I think really make this for a strong image. One, the texture and detail and the flower in the foreground, the bee. But look, we've got this flower in the background, but there's separation. The bee is in its own little space there. That, folks, anything important in your frame, give it breathing room away from other elements. And that even means out of focus elements in the back that might be competing for attention and touching it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is awesome. I mean, you know, I like it cropped the way it is. I wonder if it would be better coming in from the left a little. It's already,
wow.
Holy.
Okay.
What?
Well,
what did you start with here? Okay, we're down to an 1100 by 700 image. So
okay, it's getting pretty.
It's getting small, but I have to say, good. This is an Olympus. Good amount of detail.
Yeah.
Cropped down that much.
Proof that Olympus should stay in the camera game.
Yeah. Well
seriously.
Said.
Wow.
Okay.
I wonder if you rotate it just like counterclockwise a touch, just to lose that little bit of lighter color green. That was kind of, I don't know.
What was that? Oh, down here?
Yeah. Or you could even come up on the crop. I was just trying to lose that little bit of.
Yeah. You come up past that flower there.
Yeah.
That petal.
Just, I think I like that better. But it just seemed like that was some information that wasn't quite pertinent. But I hate that she has to crop it so much, but this is a cool, very cool shot.
Little bright right here. I think that might be lost, Heather. You might have already recovered that or tried to. Let's just brush on highlights down and see right in these spots. You want to avoid, sometimes you can bring the highlight. Let's just bring it all the way down to -100 and nothing really happens.
Yeah.
And so, maybe just down a little bit. You definitely want to avoid bringing it down so much that it just turns kind of blah gray. Yeah.
But you could, in Photoshop, you could take some of the texture from one of the other leaves, and there's a way to actually fill that overexposed area in. It takes some practice and some heavy lifting, but I mean, it's such a cool shot that if you really were going to like enter it into a competition or really try to just fine tune the heck out of it, that's something that I would agree. Maybe just pull that brightness back a little bit.
Yeah. Cool. Very neat. Cute little bee too.
Yeah.
All right, we actually have two more. We're gonna hit Kelly's real quick, and then we've got one.
Ooh.
I know we don't see it here, but Kevin got one in, and I'm gonna get that in just a second. So I think I remember Kelly she went on somebody's workshop, and they were gonna do astrophotography, or maybe it was the comet, and of course you could see there's some clouds. So they pivoted and did some cool light painting and this shot.
Gosh.
This is interesting to me. Let me walk you guys through it, because I don't always know how crisp it's coming through. We clearly have this fantastic reflection here, and then we've got a tower with a red light up here. If we look at this, though, this looks like it is some kind of light wand. It's not the tower light. It is some kind of light wand being waved around to create this almost tree of red light over here. And I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, that was my first glance. I could not figure out for the life of me what was going on with the reflection of the red light.
Yeah.
So perhaps you're right with that light wand. I'm a little disappointed. I would probably want to just take that out. I just want to see the reflection of the red light. I mean, this shot is awesome.
Yeah.
That purple and the way the sky is done. I'd want it to just be symmetrical, and I want to see the red light the way it is reflected in the water. And I'm just find myself really confused about what's happening in that lower left section.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting, and also, if you look, the reflection of the sky has like these black spots all in it, and I don't know if that's just something to do with the ground or the,
oh yeah,
but it's not a true reflection of what's above it. I don't know if it was.
Yeah.
Whose shot is this?
This is Kelly. She's relatively new to the group. I don't know if she says no, it is the tower.
Wow,
really?
That's cool. Wow.
It is. So there's some waves or something going on with the water.
I kind of like it because
Okay.
it's kind of it makes you question what's going on. I kind of
Okay,
like
yeah.
it myself.
I made an assumption. Maybe normal people wouldn't do that. So
I would
yeah, it's fine.
I would consider possibly removing whatever that green thing is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I know you got to remove it in the reflection too, but and I don't want my comments to be taken the wrong way. I think this picture is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And here we are talking about it, which is always a great thing. I was just confused about the way that red light is being reflected, because the building is reflected so clearly. But perhaps at that foreground, there's just a lot more movement in the water that's happening versus right under the building.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I mean, even the light is legitimate. That's what's being reflected. I think it is distracting from the building, which is the real star here.
Oh, she says it's a puddle.
That
kind of explains it, because now you're getting into more of the shallow elements of the puddle and stuff.
Yeah, and it looks like it was shot pretty low, low to the ground. So who knows what? Yeah, it's. Does it say what the exposure time was on this?
60 seconds.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
in
that amount of time, that water's rippling around and the light's going all over the place, I guess.
Yeah.
I would suggest coming in from the right, just lose this little bit of trees and that white. And you could remove that light pole. I think I probably would, just because I think it would clean the image up a little bit. But it's like a mysterious image, like a lot of the other ones. It just kind of has this, what's going on here, but the colors and the textures of the sky and everything, it's just really, I don't know. It's just got this instant impact to it.
Yeah. And the fact that this is reflective in a puddle, I mean, that actually speaks volumes to, you mentioned that she was on a tour or a walkabout or something like that, a workshop. I mean, kudos to whoever was given this workshop, because, you set out and you want to shoot the stars and stuff, and then you get a sky like this and you got to pivot and figure something out. This is, just awesome. As in golf, we would call this just a great miss.
Nice. Yeah.
Awesome.
Not what you intended for the night, but you end up with a great shot.
Yeah. I just brought the saturation down of the red a little bit, and then you could also play with the hue adjustment and come up with something totally different if you wanted to. But then, yes, that is weird because you've got the red up there. So want to watch that. Cool. Nice, Kelly. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
We've
Kelly, just to throw this in there, I mean, please share more of your work, because that was
it's very good.
well done. I'd like to see more of your stuff.
I thought I marked Kevin's. He got it in at the last minute. Usually, Kevin, it's a little tricky. Here we go. For me, but here it is. Steve, this should look familiar. This is the site of your filter. Yeah, you remember.
I was just thinking about that. I remember hanging out with Kevin, shooting this. I'm still eating awesome maple syrup since this trip. And this is where my filter went flying off of the rock ledge.
That's right. That's right. So this was a dawn shot, and we had some color in the sky. Quite a bit of color, but never like boom. And we just kind of got this soft morning light here. Quite nice. Let's see. I think you sent a JPEG that you may have edited some already, Kevin. I think that I would brighten it a bit more. And I'd also go a little warmer, a little redder, bring the highlights down, shadows. I don't know what happens if we go down. They make the pine trees really start to differentiate themselves from the rest. I think I like that. Texture and clarity up a little bit. And then now let me dive into the color and HSL panel. Let's go HSL where we can see all of these. And let's grab the orange and shift for a second. You can see how much control you have. I didn't have to do anything other than grab the slider. It knows those colors. So I might move it that way a little bit. And I might go into the saturation and bump those just a bit. And the reds up a bit. What I like here is that you're really being very selective in what you are editing, how you're editing the saturation increase. So you're not creating weird colors in other areas of the images. What else, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, the sky, to me, just the sky being as bright as it is in relation to the rest of it. I mean, I don't know. This is one where I would probably be playing around with the sky for a while, trying to preserve the look of it without it being so bright. And I don't know how to explain that. I think I've had images like this where I've gone in and just painted the sky, like completely selected the whole thing, and then just played with that as a separate, almost like as a separate layer, you know, and just to tweak and just kind of make it blend in with the rest of the photo. Because even though that's what you probably saw, and when you're there, you don't question. I mean, we never question the colors within nature when we're there, because that's the colors within nature. But for some reason in photographs, there's a certain balance that I think looks better when the colors all kind of blend together. Your camera is trying to decide between the foreground and the sky on as far as white balance goes, and so it's going to err on one side or the other, and so you kind of have to go. A lot of times you have to go and adjust the sky to kind of blend in with the white balance.
Yep.
I like that, or at least in that direction. I think for some reason that tones it down a little bit to me.
Yeah, something a little weird over here. I don't love that so much. But as you were talking, what I did is just threw a graduated filter over. I used the luminance mask to say confine yourself to the brighter portion of the image that peeled it off this dark rock, and just kind of warmed it up a little, red tint, brought texture and clarity down a little. Steve, anything else?
No, I'm glad that Carr was talking about. I always call him Carr because we have David McKay and David Carr. But
it's okay.
I like what David was saying about bringing attention to the sky and the fact that it was kind of a brighter element, and it was really commanding your visual attention, because I wanted to look at the structure down there and its scale to the rock. But I found myself constantly looking to the upper left-hand section of the image, because that's where the bright sky was. And then I was kind of disappointed because it just wasn't dramatic enough for all the different colors and stuff that was happening. So part of me thought I'd love to see a crop version where the sky is taken out.
Right.
But I think then it takes away a lot of what is going on with that, you know, that rock sort of walk.
Yeah, that exactly. That's what I was thinking, because that rock is pretty awesome. I mean, and you don't want to lose too much of it, but so it's a catch-22. You're like, okay, I want to keep the whole rock. I want to see the structure. I want my attention to be drawn to the structure more than the sky.
Yeah.
So
I think even right there, Toby, just that slight amount coming down from the top,
Yeah.
really bright piece that was in the upper upper left corner, taking that and just showing a sliver of it helps a lot.
yeah, I agree. And I would extend the top cloud that's kind of, you know, from the first third over to the right. I would probably just extend, like paint that into the whole top, you know, just like fill that whole white area in. Then I think it frames it in nicely. You're still seeing the sky. You're still seeing that the sun is there, but it's just a nice, your eye isn't drawn to anything bright up in that corner.
Yeah. Yeah. I think let's try clone. A little too dark, but yeah.
Yeah, that gives you the idea though.
Yep. Yeah, nice. Hey, Kevin, you say you kept it intentionally a little underexposed to kind of reflect the time of day. I hear you. I'd say back, I think this doesn't spoil that. We didn't make it look midday, but we just brought it up a little bit to just really kind of feel these colors and tones that are there.
Yeah, and that was a good move on Kevin's part to underexpose it a bit, because now you have more to work with, so long as you don't lose it in the shadows, which it looks like he didn't.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Hey, you sent your photos in. Thank you so much. I think we got to everybody who sent them in within the last week. If I missed anybody, send them in again. We will have a show not next week because of traveling. Oops, not the week after because of personal travel for socially distant, just driving to a little Airbnb. But the week after that, we'll be back. So if you would like us to sit down and chat about your images, as we just did here with this handful of wonderful images, you can join Pen. Everything you need to know is at photorec.tv/pen. And for new members for your first year, it's $24. $24 to access to review of yep, it's still going on. Of your content. You get access to professional photographers, including me. You want a personal opinion for you on the new R5 and R6. We're all going to talk about it in a minute, but you, like, say, you're going to tell me what you shoot, what you own now, and I'm going to be able to tell you whether or not I think the R5 or R6 is going to be a good value, or if you should jump ship and go Sony or Nikon system. And we have hundreds of hours of tutorials, training videos, and content all available. You get access to all of that, plus the private Facebook group, plus the community forum. And I don't think we say it enough, and we haven't said it recently. The community is what makes Pen so awesome. So if you're looking for a group of photographers that can have a little fun and share their knowledge and support one another, you've come to the right place. Pen Photo Enthusiast Network is fantastic. I'm so proud of it. And again, photorec.tv/join for all of the information and to take advantage of that special. What are you eating, Scurich?
What am I eating?
Yeah, were you eating some?
I was eating the maraschino cherry at the bottom of it. But I gotta tell you guys something. So if you I'm not a maraschino cherry fan. I mean, they look kind of cool or whatever as a garnish, but Luxardo maraschino cherries are out of this world.
They're the bomb, man. Those things are awesome.
Yeah. They're not cheap. It's about $20 for a jar of them at Williams-Sonoma and other places. But let me tell you, they are well worth it if you like a really good garnish for your cocktail. So that's why it's like the dessert at the end of a meal.
I broke our jar, so I do need people to use my Amazon link so I can buy a new one and replace it.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. It was quite messy too. It was quite messy.
Yeah, that's stuff.
Messy.
Yeah, but they are very, very good.
Using cocktails alone.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk. This is why we have a large number of people watching, larger than we have in quite a while, and they're all waiting so patiently to hear our opinions and thoughts about the EOS R5 and the R6. Let's just start with this, the basic information. The R5, it's a new mirrorless from Canon. It's their third mirrorless full frame after the R, which was announced in September of 2018, the RP, which came a handful of months later, I don't remember exactly, and is a very budget full frame camera. And now we have the R5, which in many ways seems to be the mirrorless version of the incredibly popular 5D Mark 2, 3, 4 line that is a DSLR. 45 megapixels. Headline feature that we've been hearing about for months is it is capable of shooting 8K video. There are no other full frame cameras out there shooting 8K, and there's only a handful, like a couple, that shoot even 6K. So this is a huge step up. And it's the first Canon mirrorless, I think, across the board. There's none of the crop sensor ones either that has in-body image stabilization. So the sensor itself is stabilized, and it does work in conjunction with some lens stabilization systems to give you up to 8 stops of stabilization, which is huge for full frame cameras. Nobody else is doing that. And it costs $4,000, which is about where we were starting to settle on, especially after they said it'll be under $4,000. And then I think most of us were like, yeah, that means $3,900. And it's $3,900. Really nice viewfinder, one of the highest resolution viewfinders. Really nice LCD screen that is fully articulating, flip out, face you in the front. Like we have wanted, or at least me personally has wanted Sony to do forever. But now here we have it on a Canon full frame mirrorless camera. That's all the good news. And
wait a second.
Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Dual card slots.
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
And LP6 battery. They use the same battery that us DSLR Canon shooters have been using for years. Yes,
but there's a catch. It is the LPE6. It's a new version of that, though, and that new version, I believe, just is a larger capacity, even though it's the same size.
You can still use your old batteries.
That's true. That's true. You might be a little disappointed in battery life, and that's one of the things where I think they've got this really high resolution screen and viewfinder, and early reports of battery life it's just okay.
Yeah,
it's kind of half of what Sony is, or maybe a little bit more than half.
Yeah, who has 6 of these batteries floating around in my drawers to not have to buy a bunch of batteries is kind of nice.
Yeah, that is nice. And thank you so much. Dual card slots is huge, because I don't want to say they made that mistake. But they made the decision in the earlier models, especially the R. The RP can be forgiven. That is a entry-level budget full-frame camera. But the R was positioned at a price that most of the competitors had dual card slots. And, of course, the YouTube audience jumped on that like the frothing, rabid people we are, and said this camera is doomed. I think it's done okay. The other thing that's big is that they've gone back to a control scheme that is almost identical to the 5D Mark IV line, except for the fact that you've lost your side buttons because it flips out. Maybe I should show a few pictures for anybody who hasn't seen it. That's all of the good news. I don't know if you guys have seen what the YouTube community is frothing about now, though, is that, okay, it shoots 8K, but there do seem to be some red flags as far as overheating goes.
Oh yeah, okay. I was wondering about that.
And none of us are huge video guys. I even include myself in that. Yes, I shoot video for this channel, but rarely am I shooting long single clips of video, and I'm not making a living at shooting the video itself. So I'm not a wedding videographer, or not interview or documentary or concert videographer. So the overheating at the 8K, I think could be a little overblown. It's kind of like picking at something that in all general respects is very good. But I'll say this, and Tony Northrup, I think, makes a good point about this, although he pushes a little bit far. I mean, we all want to push a little so that you're like, oh, what's he saying? I got to watch that. If you are really focused on video and you do need longer clips, I would definitely wait until we get some real reviews, because we don't have real reviews yet.
Right.
We've got the ambassadors, and we've got, like I linked to Gordon Lang in my show notes. If you want to go see great, just overall hands-on, how it looks, how it feels, how it acts, Gordon is a fantastic guy. I know him from the Sony press events. And Chris and Jordan also have great, but they're not true reviews. They're more kind of this is how it feels, this is how it acts, and they're not allowed to post pictures yet, especially full resolution photos, and they're not allowed to really talk about, shooting video and having overheating issues.
And these are all prototype cameras that they have in hand.
That's right.
Peter McKinnon, I watched his review, and he's very upfront at the beginning about the fact that he's an ambassador and he's been shooting Canon forever. It's a very positive review. He does point out, he talks about some of the overheating, not making a big deal about it the way a lot of the internet has been doing. But he also mentions that these are prototypes that they have in hand, and hopefully some of these things will be ironed out a bit by the time it really hits the market.
Mm-hmm.
So when does it actually hit the market?
July 30th, which is 2 weeks.
Right.
Oh, wow.
So
yeah. Well, let me start with you, Steve. As as a longtime Canon photographer, you now own a Hasselblad, but you still own your Canon. You still own all of the nice Canon glass. Mm-hmm. Where does this camera fall on your interest level?
Had I not started shooting so much medium format and using that as my work camera in shooting real estate and stuff like that, I would easily start hawking all of my Canon equipment and pick one of these things up. This was the update that I've been waiting for from Canon. This is what I thought, not with the 8K, but this is what I thought they were going to introduce when they came out with the R. Gosh, how long ago was that?
September 2018.
Yeah, I'd say a couple years.
Yeah, coming up on almost 2.
And what I love about this is you get to go into the mirrorless world as a Canon shooter, and it's all natural. Like the scroll wheel and the joystick and the flip out screen is awesome.
Yeah.
The menu system, the simplicity of it, the build quality, the LP6 batteries, I love this thing. I'm super excited about it. I don't know if I'm going to be buying one because for work, I've been shooting this Hassie now for a couple of years and it's my go-to work camera. Mm-hmm. But I think someday this will definitely be in my wheelhouse. I still just love Canon products. They're built like a tank. They always work. The battery life is good. And they've just proved to me to be reliable and simple to use. Getting into the video things, that just doesn't matter to me. But I know for a lot of people that, especially those people that are kind of in that 5D Mark II world, when that came out and you could do cinema quality sort of video with a DSLR, that was a really big deal. And Peter McKinnon kind of made a big deal about that this is like the 5D Mark II announcement just years later. I don't know if you'd quite go there. Not many people are doing the 8K thing.
Right.
The fact that they're doing it without a crop is awesome, and it obviously proves that it can be done. So obviously Canon's just kind of been taking their time and looking at everything, and I think they came out with a great product.
I think so too. On the photo side of thing, David Carr, you're not really in the Canon world. You are a happy Nikon photographer. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
I will say though, and I've said this, there's always the jokes about Canon versus Nikon. It's like Apple versus PC. I really don't care because, like, at the end of the day, I just care what you do with it. I don't care what you use to get results, as long as you get results, and really any camera that's available right now, any at least interchangeable lens camera on the market right now is quite capable of producing pretty amazing results. So now it's just a matter of functionality and features, and all of the build quality, all those things. I will say if I was ready to really upgrade, which I'm not, and if I was in a position to switch, this would definitely interest me, because this seems like just a very pro camera, a mirrorless camera that is it seems like it has all the goods. As a Nikon shooter, I love my Z6, my Z7. I think they're great cameras. They produce great results. They're not perfect, and there are a couple of things that I do wish were different. And this camera seems to answer some of those issues for me, but it's a whole different system. I would have to sell all this Nikon gear and start over, and that's just too daunting right now. But I hats off to Canon. I mean, I've always thought their stuff is great. I just happened to go with Nikon 20 years ago when I started getting into cameras at all, and so there I am.
Yeah, and I got asked this question today. I was a Canon shooter for a long period of time. I owned the 5D Mark III, was when I started to move towards Sony, or waiting for the 5D Mark IV. And somebody asked me, does this tempt me back to Canon? And the answer is a definitive no. Not because it's not a good camera,
right?
But because the Sony ecosystem, one, similar to you, I mean, selling gear is it's a pain in the butt. It's certainly possible, but it's a pain in the butt. And I've got a decent amount of gear, and more importantly, right now, the amount of third-party lenses on the Sony side, the Tamron, the little lightweight Tamron lenses, and this combo together. It's kind of ironic I say that while I have the 100 to 400 attached, which is an absolute beast of a lens. But this is a really nice system, and it comes in a lot of ways for photography, just as good as this newer camera, and in some ways maybe even a little bit better, and it's cheaper. So I'm still happy with this, but I do, similar to you, I say kudos Canon. You've done a good job here. This maybe should have been what the EOS R was, but I also recognize that the EOS R was your very first generation and give you a little bit of time.
Yeah, and what this excites me for is that it ups the game, I think, for Nikon. Hopefully that, they're about to announce, I think, a Z6S, a Z7S. I won't be going to those. I don't think there's going to really be any reason to go to those for me, but hopefully in the not too distant future, there will be something that answers this in the Nikon world. And like I said, like you're saying, I'm just too invested in the Nikon glass, and I'm already having to sell a lot of stuff just to kind of really fully adopt the mirrorless system. So I don't want to do that again anytime soon. And again, it's like, if you're comfortable, whatever you're comfortable with shooting, if you love your Sonys and you're comfortable with the system and you know the menus and you're just good to go, like, knock yourself out. Canon, same thing. Nikon, I don't care, because like they're all so similar in what they can do at the end of the day. It's any differences are just splitting hairs, and the average viewer will never be able to know the difference. It's just us gearhead types that can see the minute differences. So
Or you bring up a great point. If you're comfortable with a certain system or a certain brand, that's a really big deal. That's me. I'm comfortable with Canon. I've shot Canon forever. And I'm always just a big cheerleader for Canon, and I'm constantly kind of let down by some of these ho-hum product announcements they've been coming out with lately, especially the EOS R. When that came out, I was just really kind of disappointed, because I was really excited about their first mirrorless camera and what was that going to look like and stuff.
Right.
If I was just kind of hanging in there still, and I hadn't jumped ship, I hadn't gone to Sony or any of those other very tempting options, and Canon now comes out with the R5, and I've got some money saved to switch over to mirrorless. This is awesome, because like I said at the beginning, I like the fact that I don't need to learn a whole new menu system, and also the ergonomics of the camera. And now I have pretty big hands, I have long fingers and stuff, so going really small on a camera is not a selling point to me.
Right.
And I think that this camera isn't that much smaller than a DSLR.
Right.
But you get all the advancements of mirrorless. Sure, you get the 8K and the video capabilities and stuff, but I think as a shooter, as a photography camera, this is going to be outstanding, because I've always really liked the EOS. What is the
5DSR?
5DS, 5DS and 5DSR, and it's interesting to see. I don't know if they'll ever do anything with that again, the high-end photography-based camera. But this thing supposedly is performing at those types of levels, but it's got all the latest advancements and that flip out screen. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I'm definitely jealous of that.
I think I saw somebody in the chat mention that. I am too. You know, this articulating screen gets me by often, but it would be really nice to flip it out as well.
Canon would be the best flip out screen for years, and why they've left it off of their prosumer cameras has always been a bit of a mystery to me in recent years. So finally it exists.
It's cool.
Yeah. I think I've had this up on the screen for a while here because a couple of things. I want to go back to the video side of things for just a couple of minutes more, because yes, the YouTubers are frothing over the fact that this might overheat, but Canon has released some more information that makes it seem like overheating really is an issue if you're going to be recording for any longer lengths of time. Recording up at the 8K and even the 4K, you're talking about ranges of 20 to 30 minutes, which I don't know. The 5D Mark IV, 5D Mark III, 5D Mark II, they sold very well to photographers and videographers. You know, as a prior wedding photographer, there was also times where I was hired by friends to help shoot video of a wedding if I didn't have a wedding to shoot photos of. And we all always used 5D Mark IIIs and 4s, or back in those days, 2s and 3s really. And they are just fantastic. They worked well. They did a good job. And, you know, they also, I had one already for the photo side of things. I don't know what percentage of the cameras are sold and people use them primarily for video. Clearly, they made a lot of headlines and big news about this, but there are some red flags. The overheating.
Yeah.
Canon even suggested in a interview with one of their techs that you could point a fan at it for a few moments when it gets too hot.
Oh God.
Which is just not really.
Oh, that sounds like an Apple response to overheating. Wow.
It totally does. Totally sounds like an Apple response.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is to me, and I don't really know the video world very well, but I mean, I can't even barely get my head around 4K right now, much less 6K, and now 8K, which that's all great, but it just seems to me that if I was in the video world and I was like ready to jump into 8K, that I would be buying a full-on video camera, like a C300 or what, not whatever the equivalent of that would be to 8K. And then I'm not worried about all that stuff, because it just seems to me, I mean, it's cool that this camera can do that. And I guess maybe if you're a videographer and you've got some $30,000 8K camera, but you need some side cameras or some B-roll cameras or something to go with it, maybe this is the answer. But I just can't imagine some serious videographer who's like really working it and doing 8K, that this is going to be their workhorse camera.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think it's more marketing than anything else.
Yeah.
The first to be able to say they can do it.
Yeah.
And these are the limitations that it comes with now, and being able to be the first to say that you've done it.
Right. Exactly. Nikon, or as Pamela Case says, Nikon. She keeps correcting me on it. I guess that's, you always hear the Australian guys going Nikon.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, when they came out with the D90 years ago, I bought that camera, and that was
a great camera.
It was an awesome camera. I've got shots that look fantastic from it. But one of the selling points, I feel embarrassed admitting this, was they used Ashton Kutcher as their like spokesperson. He was talking about like HD video in this DSLR, and I was like, "That's so cool! It shoots HD video." Well, I got it because that was like the selling point. That was the marketing thing, and it was pretty lame HD video. I think it was technically HD, but it was, just really limited in what it could do. Obviously, Nikon has never been great at the autofocus stuff until the Z series. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this is the equivalent of that, but to me, if you're looking at the R6, it's going to be for the photography more than anything, I think. And the 8K is a cool side feature.
Yeah, I guess. I just struggle with that a little bit because they have been leading and teasing us with the video side of things.
Yeah, maybe so.
Camera. Yeah. They didn't even say how many megapixels it was going to have until very, very recently.
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And I think so. Yeah, that's one point I want to make. But I think you're right. basically. And Steve, you mentioned that you really enjoy the 5DS and the 5DSR. Interestingly enough, remember you had to choose whether or not one of those, the only difference between those two is one had an AA filter. And real quick to catch people up, an AA filter is a filter that very slightly blurs your image to avoid moire. That's that kind of optical illusion rainbow pattern you get in fine detail. And it can be an issue. Most cameras, most manufacturers, Sony and Nikon especially, Panasonic too, they ditched the AA filter back in 2015. They figured out how to get rid of that without introducing too much moire. And ditching it gives you sharper images. Your images are less blurred. This camera, go ahead, Steve.
Well, there's also a drawback to that, though. So like in the 5DS and SR, as an example, the 5DS as a portrait camera is outstanding. You want to have that filter on there because it can give you some clarity and yet soften it enough that the skin tones look really good and flattering. When you remove that, as the 5DSR had, yeah, you get a sharper picture, but that's good for things like landscape. But you don't want to necessarily shoot portrait with that because now you got all the pock marks and you know pits of the skin and stuff like that. So there's kind of this trade-off. So you almost had to choose. Well, am I going to shoot more portrait or am I going to shoot more landscape? And if you shot more landscape, you get the detail with the 5DSR. And portraiture, you wanted the 5DS, and both were great. But you're right; you had to choose between those two.
Yeah. And we're going to move on here because we have to, because the show's already going long. We got to talk about the R6 a little bit and those telephoto lenses before we wrap up. And I'm almost out of beer. So, the other thing is, on one hand, as somebody who has traveled to Tanzania and shot video with a Panasonic 4K, but then published it out at 1080, that allowed me to crop in. And so the idea of taking one of these really nice RF lenses, because I will say Canon has fantastic RF lenses, taking one of the new ones or the 200 to 500 that's coming out, or even an adapted lens, shooting at 8K and then being able to publish out at 1080 and have incredible cropping capabilities in video is really, really exciting. But this card right here, if I did my math correctly, this 512 gigabyte card that costs $600 will give me about 25 minutes of 8K video. Oh.
What I wish they would do is come out, they're not going to do this, but I wish they would have a non-8K version of this camera. You know, just one that shoots. Jose Hernandez said something, okay, realistically, who shoots 4K 60, 120 for longer than 25 minutes continuously, though? They already stated they're overheating. There's no overheating when shooting 4K 30 on HQ24.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a video guy. I would love this camera without all that 8K stuff because I feel like that's kind of beefing up the price a bit. If I could get this camera for about $3,000, $3,200 without all the video stuff, or without the 8K, I'd be a really happy camper as a photographer. I just can't get away from the fact that this 8K thing is just a marketing ploy from Canon to be the first that said they did it.
Yeah, that makes me think a little bit, Steve. Let me throw this wild thought out. I heard this today. I was listening to actually, wait, don't tell me again, which I referenced a couple of shows back. They're talking about Chrysler. Was it Chrysler or BMW? I can't remember one of them. They're now going to start making some features of the car subscription based. So let's say you have heated seats in the car, but if you're not paying them $20 a month, they won't work.
What the?
Right. Yeah.
Do you think we have a future of that in the cameras? I mean, in a way, there is. You can buy like a Panasonic, and I think maybe even the Canon, older Canon, and you pay an extra fee to unlock certain video features. Really, it's kind of a video format more than anything. How does that sound? Let's say they give you the camera. It's capable of 8K, but if you're not paying them, another couple $100 or $1,000, it won't do that.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about the new Apple iPhone 12 that's going to come out. It's not going to come with a charger or headphones, but then you'll be able to buy a version that, you pay a little bit more and you get that stuff with it. And that's a little bit of a different story because you're talking about environmental e-waste and stuff like that. And I'm actually a big fan of that. But I like the idea of subscription based. I mean, that's why I ditched cable 7 or 8 years ago. I haven't gone back to cable because I like just a la carte. I just pay for what I'm actually using.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be awesome. I think we're still hung up though on these badges on our cameras and our cars and stuff that say I have this model and your model is, you know, lesser, or I've got the 5 series and you've got the 3 series or something. And it's just ridiculous to me. So I like the idea of just getting one good quality product from a great company and then being able to kind of pick and choose what type of options you want to, you know, fire up and which you can do without.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. It is interesting. Yeah, I'm curious if it ever comes, but let's move on. EOS R6. This is a lot of the R5 in a slightly smaller body. We've lost that top e-ink display screen, but a $1,500 cheaper at $2,499. This is coming a little bit later this year, September 1st. So we've got to wait for about a month and a half. 20 megapixels, but still dual card slots. It's 2 SDs though, isn't it? It's not SD and CFast like the other one is. It does do 4K at 60, 12 frames per second. And what else? And it does have image stabilization. So again, really a lot of the R5 features, but for a slightly lower amount. And it is a fully articulating screen as well. And similar control scheme on the back. So we're missing kind of those headline 8K features. We're moving from a 45 megapixel in the R5 to a 20 megapixel here in this R6. But otherwise quite similar. Yeah. Is this tempting or interesting to either of you?
I think they'll do a great job selling this thing.
I think they will.
Where you had the 5D line and then you had the 6D line. The 6D line just never really quite got the chops that you wanted it to have. It was just an entry-level full frame, but it was very, very stripped. It was a good camera.
Sure.
You could recommend it, but there could be, you know, some better options. You get into the ED line and stuff like that if you don't get the crop sensor. Yeah. I think this is a really good way to go for a full frame mirrorless if you're not a videographer. And I'm not worried about the 20 megapixels.
I was going to ask.
No, I mean, with their dual pixel sensors that they've been doing for a while, I assume that that's going to play here. I don't know if this is a recycled sort of sensor or if this is an all new one. But to me, you know, I've kind of gotten to the point in my life, I guess, or the camera world where a whole bunch of megapixels isn't always a great thing because sometimes they just get smaller and smaller and smaller when you get into low light situations or you need something really fast. Yeah, not the best option for you. I think turn out some amazing images with 20 megapixels on a full frame sensor and the newest technology behind it.
Yeah. And I must say, like, because you know, my previous 2 Nikon bodies that I was using DSLRs, I did have the D5, which was pretty much the same resolution. It was like 21, almost 21 megapixels. And then I had the D850, which was, you know, 46, 47, whatever. And it's funny because when I go through my images, sometimes I don't know which camera was, or which image was from which camera. I mean, I have to go look at the metadata or like zoom in quite a bit. And then I go, oh, okay, well, obviously this was the D850. And, you know, I have an image hanging on my wall here from the D5 that's blown up huge and also cropped and blown up huge. And it's like, I don't think you would even know that it came from a 20 megapixel camera. Cause you know, obviously there was a time when 20 megapixels would have blown our minds. You know, we would have been like, who needs that much resolution? So I think 45 is the new level of that. And now obviously the A7R4 going up to 60 plus. It's all great because then you do have that croppability factor. But I do think I wouldn't buy a camera just because of the resolution, unless you're somebody who knows you're going to have to crop a lot. Even we say a lot of times, even like we say, well, if you're going to blow it up really big, but you can still blow these 20 megapixel images up really big as long as you're not cropping the heck out of them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of debate about that, and so I think this camera will do quite well because it's just right in that sweet spot.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, and I think 20 megapixels is enough. I think they have a little bit of a marketing struggle from the standpoint of, well, body only, $2,500 for a 20 megapixel camera. On the Sony side of things, you have the A7 III, 24 megapixels for less money. And now the A7 III is getting a little bit old. We should see a replacement sometime, I'd say within the next 6 months, maybe a year. That probably will come in at about the same price, because that's where it's just been sitting its whole life, and it will be interesting to see. But we've mentioned it several times, both of you guys have, and I want to make sure people know. I mean, Canon's user interface and the ergonomics, the feel in hand. I've met very few people who put their hands on a Canon and don't say, "Oh, that's nice." They've just done a really, really nice job there. And it is just so user-friendly with that fully articulating, fully touch screen.
Good.
Very, very nice.
Yeah,
that's nice.
So don't forget, I mean, history has shown that Canon's introduction pricing tends to get chiseled away at a few months once it's been out there. It launches, a lot of people buy it and stuff, and then they kind of back off of their pricing. They run a lot of specials and stuff like that during certain times of year. I don't know that Sony is quite so much like that. It just seems like over the last,
it used to be.
Canon has really just kind of, if sales are slumping or there's Black Friday's coming up or something, you find some incredible deals.
Yeah,
so you can hold off if you can wait, which just sounds kind of silly because we've been waiting a long time for these cameras to hit the market. But wait till the holidays, and $2,500 could be $2,200.
Right. And I will say this too, just to not to keep belaboring, but with my, I've got the Z7 and the Z6 Nikon, and I've been interested to see how popular the Z6 is versus the Z7. They're both very popular, but there's like a cult following for the Z6, and I think it has to do with the price point. It's not a huge megapixel. It is, but it's 24 and change megapixels. So I guess it would be cool if this Canon had just a few more, just to sort of entice those folks. But it's been interesting to see between these two, the two Nikon, because that's the world I know. It's just been interesting to see the sort of cult following being behind the sort of that middle of the road image resolution, the 25 megapixel versus the super high resolution. And I love having both. And going to Glacier last week, it was really awesome having both and getting to kind of play with both cameras and just see what the difference was going to be. But
David, let me ask you. So you walked around Glacier last week with a 45 megapixel and a 24 or 25 megapixel.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The Z7 and the Z6.
Yeah.
What percentage did you shoot with each? Do you have an idea?
That's a good question. I think I probably shot a little bit more with the Z7, maybe like 60-40. I mean, there were times that it was just all about convenience. I just got that new 500 millimeter lens. I was super excited about it. And it tended to stay on my Z6 a lot because for wildlife, I don't feel like I need massive resolution. And I wanted to be able to have the frames per second to really, really shoot away. We didn't see a ton of wildlife, but when I did see it, I tended to do that. I tended to use the Z6, the 24-ish megapixel camera. But I will say, when we saw that mountain goat on the last day, I shot some with the Z6, and then I switched it to the Z7. I wanted to really be able to A/B them. And I mean, of course, the Z7 is higher resolution. Of course, I can crop it and not lose that. But it's amazing how much of or how little of a difference it really seems to make in the real world. When you really look at the two side by side, they're just pretty similar. And when you crop in, it's like, well, yeah, it's not quite as defined, but the Z6, but it's still like no one's looking at an image that close anyway. And so
So what I'm hearing, and I think I echo it, is we don't necessarily need a massive number of megapixels, and 20 is going to be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool when it's more, but
yeah, sometimes it's nice to have more.
Yeah.
Okay. Roger Hunt, he's a longtime follower of the channel and pen member and fantastic bird photographer. He's very interested in the R6, the AF coverage. It's edge to edge practically. The tracking, it has IAF, and they're even talking about tracking birds in flight. It's got that in-body image stabilization. He says, what's not to like? And I say on paper, there's a lot to like about this camera and that price point. I am curious to see how it works with adapted lenses. And this is one other struggle I think that Canon has for the time period, and Sony had it for a while as well. But you buy a $2,500 camera, which that's a chunk of change, but it's for the camera you're getting, I think, hey, pretty good. But then you start to look at their lenses. And yeah, we've got the 35, lovely little lens, $500. Okay, that's very affordable. But then we run into $100 to $500, $2,600, 15 to 35, 2,300, 2,700, 2,300, 3,000. That's all right. I don't want to make it seem like I'm being one-sided here. The RF, that's the same lens, but there is the new 85 is 600. So there are some affordable lenses, but in general, right now, Canon has very expensive lenses. They're excellent, but man, you're going to pay more than you did for the camera. And maybe that's how it should be. And we've always encouraged, put the glass before the body, and glass is really critical. And these RF lenses are excellent. But it'll be interesting to see, when people buy it with the 24 to 105, and then start to look at adding other lenses, they're going to realize that it's quite expensive, except for, let's pivot to these new 800 millimeter, and somewhere on this page should be the 600 millimeter, $699 and $899 respectively. Very, very affordable, long lenses. The catch is they're f11. So here's to keep this moving along, I'll just talk for a second. Let's run over to an exposure calculator and talk a little bit about what that means. So let's say you're shooting with a long lens, you're shooting wildlife, you want to keep that shutter speed up, or maybe you're shooting sports. You want to keep that shutter speed higher to freeze the action. On one hand, you've got f11 is your maximum, the widest aperture you can shoot. On another hand, let's say it's f5.6, let's just leave it at f5.6 for now. That's what that difference is, equals your ISO is going to be 1600 versus 400. I don't say that to be like, oh no. Honestly, I think with these modern mirrorless cameras, there's not a huge difference if you've exposed decently. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, I would. I'm becoming, as the years go on, I'm becoming less and less concerned with pushing up that ISO. I had 1600 5 years ago. I would have just thought, oh, rarely will I ever shoot at 1600. Maybe a wildlife situation, you got to get the shot or something. Nowadays, I don't really sweat 1600 ISO anymore. So that's actually a great point to make. And then you combine that with stabilization technology that's both in the lenses and in items, and that can really help out a lot. And you combine it with your software editing in programs like Topaz, where you can get some sharpening or you can get some noise reduction and stuff, especially on the noise reduction side. Then all of a sudden F11, which as a number to us who have been shooting for a while seems like something you never even want to start with as a wide open lens option, becomes something that is not only manageable, but it starts to kind of make some sense in order to save all that money. Because what, you get a 600 millimeter 2.8 lens for $20,000? Nobody's buying that. You probably not even want to fork out the money to rent that kind of thing, or an F4.
Right.
But all of a sudden you've got these long length lenses that are now affordable, and all the technology that kind of comes into play. It's totally doable.
Yeah.
I think we'll see a lot more of that as time goes on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very affordable, quite compact for its size and lightweight, kind of a unique locking mechanism. And again, Gordon Lang, I think I linked to his. Check out his YouTube channel. He's got very short, very but thorough overviews of these lenses so far. No real comments yet on its autofocusing speed. And, as Caleb points out, and also Roger too, these are really for the hobbyist and enthusiast more than the professional birder. But I'm curious, if you're a soccer mom, you're a soccer dad, you're going to go, eventually we're going to have those sports happening again. You're going to go cover those. Are these able to keep up with, a kid running quickly and changing directions on a field? And also in lower light situations like a night game, not a so well lit night game. I wonder if people ultimately will be happy with them or not. I'm curious to know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't think there's anything else to say about those at this time, but I mean, the price is impressive. Yeah. I will certainly test these as soon as I can get my hands on them. But I'm excited for more options. And it was a while back, I think it was Robert said in the chat that, all of these improvements, no matter what manufacturer is bringing them to the table, is good because it pushes everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think we are back to, for a while, not everybody loved Sony, but I think most people were like, the Sony cameras are better. And now I think we're back to a point where you can have certain requirements, and maybe a Nikon is best for you, or a Sony, or a Canon. There are strengths from all three of them in different ways. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fantastic, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I wish this was a conversation, honestly, that we were having 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All these players in the market. And, I personally would tell Canon shooters that have been waiting for mirrorless, finally, now is the time to go ahead and make that switch, if that's something you've been kind of waiting to do. Because I think more than anything, what Canon is doing here is they're going to stop the bleed. Because there are a lot of people, I personally have known a lot of people that have sold their Canon gear and they've switched over to the Sony ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So I think that over the last couple of years, I don't think they're being totally reactionary to that. I think that Canon just really missed the ball on research and development and getting a product like this out to the market a couple of years ago when they really should have. But finally it's here, and that's a great thing. And I'm glad we are talking about it. I just wish that we were talking about this 2 years ago. Yeah. But this is going to be good for everybody. I'm a big fan of competition, and I think that I'm excited for all the Canon shooters out there that now get to switch over to mirrorless to a really great prosumer camera, or a couple of different options.
Yep.
Definitely.
All right. I'm going to save my Windows whine later, and I'll just generally say, in general, this laptop is doing a pretty darn good job for as small and lightweight as it is. I even taught a Lightroom session from it on our last workshop, and it was fine. But there are some things that Windows just doesn't do as well. But let's real quick hit some Q&As. And also I say, if you're still watching, you must be enjoying this show. Take a moment and give it a thumbs up. That's a nice way to let the algorithm know that it was worth your time, and it's worth somebody else's time if they're interested in this content. John C. asks, I've had my eye on the Sony A9 for action. He's an aviation photographer. He's wondering if the silent shutter will distort images. I'm interested in the 8K for short video clips of aircraft air to air. So I'll answer this. I have tested the A9 and taken that on a couple of different trips, and I can say definitively that the silent shutter is fantastic. It is fast enough. The readout is fast enough that you don't get distortion. Now you are photographing some very fast moving props as well. You might see a little distortion in the props, but not in the airplanes. I never saw any. And you're saying you're interested in 8K for short video clips of aircraft air to air. The A9 doesn't do 8K, but maybe you mean the fact that it shoots 20 frames per second stills, which is almost 24 frames a second. And you could stitch those together after a burst into a short video clip. So just keep that in mind. I hope that's what you mean. There are some limitations there. There's some of these are heavy questions. Comparing the A7R4 versus the new Canon R5 for a combination of still and video photography. Harold, I think that's a separate video that I should make or somebody else will make very, very soon. I would say that they are closely matched. Canon's going to win. We've said it before. We said again on ergonomics, user interface, and the fact that it does 8K and a whole host. It does raw images and it's got, or sorry, raw video. It's got a whole section of video that is significantly above the A7R4. But with a caveat that you might see some overheating with some of those issues, and you have to come down to 4K 30, which the A7R4 offers, to have no issues with overheating as far as we know. And I think they're going to be very, very closely matched. I'm curious.
I'd love to table that question. Well, actually, you just said we're probably not doing the show for a couple of weeks, because this discussion is something that we're probably going to be having for a few weeks now, as they roll out the R5 and you compare it to like the A7R4 and things like that. Mm-hmm. So I was going to say, I'd love to have a lengthier discussion about comparing these two cameras, which we'll still have even a couple of weeks from now. But yeah,
mm-hmm. No, I think that's a great. Let's move on. I think we should wait a little bit, and I've said enough of what we know so far. Kai Oliver Schmidt wants to know if we think 20 megapixels of the R6 is good enough for stills of macro and landscape. I think we already offered that, and you say yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Caveman 81. Any idea on getting the Canon RP as a first camera? And so the RP is their budget full frame Canon. I just want to see what its price is sitting at right now. $12.99 with 24 to 105 f4 to 7.1 lens.
Oh wow!
I know.
I didn't realize that the price with the lens was that low on the RP.
Yeah, I didn't either. Without body only, it's $9.99. It's 26 megapixels. It is using a slightly older sensor, but it is a good camera. It's just not great for anything faster or anything really action oriented or sports, wildlife, birds in flight. But for general photography, for landscapes, it is a great first camera. But you need to either have already Canon lenses and buy the adapter, or consider that the RF lenses that are out there are much, much more expensive than the camera itself. Mm-hmm. So if you keep that in mind, I think you're in your good shape. But it's good. Pamela wants to know how I changed the background color of the hawk photo. I just adjusted the highlights and the blue was there. It was just washed out until we lowered the highlights and then it started to show up.
Yep.
Robert says, who even has a computer at home that can handle editing in 8K? Not many of us. I don't.
Yeah. I mean, this whole 8K thing, to me, it's just a non-issue. I won't say I'll never, but if I had that camera, I would not be using the 8K and I wouldn't be rendering 8K videos on my machine. I don't know. I kind of feel like if that's your thing, if that's what you're going for, then you're one of the few people that should just own a whole red camera system or something.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at earlier. It just feels like it's, I don't know. I don't understand that world enough as it is. And I love high definition. I love 4K, but 4K was already like, wow. And, but I get it. It's not, it's kind of like the image resolution, 46 megapixels versus 25. It's not so much that it's so much better. It's like, oh my gosh, this is going to blow your photos away. It's not about that. It's about obviously there are advantages. I mean, your Hasselblad shoots 50 something megapixels and obviously it's different size pixels, but there's a real advantage to having that kind of resolution. But it's just, I mean, for the video world, it's weird. It's still weird for me to think that like serious videographers are going to use a DSLR or a mirrorless versus a red camera or something, in that category.
Yeah. John asked, how much are 8K monitors? Dell has one on B&H for $3,200. And it doesn't even have 5 stars, only has 4.
You know, I mean, and the previous question, I mean, it does open up this whole other world of viewing and editing and equipment and storage and speed. And, you know, the camera is just one small component of the overall pricing of operating in the 8K world.
Right, that's true.
We're not there yet, generally speaking. I mean, the red camera folks are there. But they're forking out tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars on equipment and making cinema production films and stuff. So
yeah. American. All right, just a couple more questions. I know we're running along here, guys. Appreciate you hanging in there. Twinkie Be Good wants to know how heavy the new Canon bodies are. Go watch Gordon's videos. He tells you exactly how much they weigh and how much that compares to the kind of original 5D Mark IV is a good weight. They are lighter, not especially the R5. The R5 is lighter, but not a huge difference. The R6 is a good bit lighter, but they still have a chunk to them that, you know, I think many people will appreciate. One very common complaint of the Sony cameras is, yes, they're smaller and lighter, but with a heavy lens, they don't feel great in the hand. I've gotten used to it and it's fine. It works for me, but I do think the Canons feel much nicer. Pamela wants to know, if you use the CF Express in the Z6, can you still use XQDs or should she stick with the XQDs? David Carr, I mean, it's just a firmware update and then you can switch back and forth, isn't it?
I think so, but I haven't even done the firmware update because my XQD cards are still working just fine and I never like run through all of them. So
what's the benefit of just having the option of also doing CF Express?
Yeah, because when they first came out with the XQDs, you had Lexar was making them and Sony and a couple other manufacturers, but those were kind of the top two. And then Lexar just kind of dumped that whole division. And it really came down, like Sony was the only ones making them, which is ironic because they weren't putting them in their mirrorless cameras. But and so they kind of just became very hard to find other than you only had Sony. That was the only option. And so I think CF Express just kind of, I think they write a little bit faster. There's a few upgrades in the technology, but they keep the same footprint. And, you know, I mean, so it's kind of nice because at least we don't have to upgrade our camera to upgrade to that card. I just haven't done it yet. I haven't really felt the need at this point.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Do we think the Canon M mount is dead?
Yeah, unfortunately, I do. I mean, it's the M mount.
They're nice little cameras. I saw one in the wild in Glacier. It's pretty rare that I see one. Yeah, you know, it's hard to say.
Says, where is its place in all of this? You know, and I can only say that I wouldn't recommend diving into an M mount Canon camera. If somebody wanted to get into it, you know, where do you start? A couple of years ago, I even bought one for my stepson, getting him into it, and he's taking great pictures with it, and it's awesome. But I wouldn't recommend it today.
Yeah. It's hard to say for sure, but you know, there's been so little movement, and I think you said it well, Steve. What's its place? It doesn't seem to have one.
Yeah.
Kevin wants to know, would the R6 be a good sports camera? Kevin, I think we need to wait a little bit and really see how that AF system works. It does look impressive. It's using dual pixel AF2. It's like an upgraded mode of their very good dual pixel system. But we just don't know quite how fast it'll be. So let's wait a little bit. It's quite possible that it'll be just fine though.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I think it'll be
well, it's 12 frames per second. I think that is both those cameras are capable of 12 frames per second. You know, and Tony brought this up. I remember this testing with the EOS R2. That was just published at 5 frames per second, and it couldn't even quite make that though with doing autofocus in between shots. So let's see if this 12 is a marketing number, or if it can actually. But 12 is a very nice frames per second. If you can hit that with good autofocus, then Steve would be right. If not, he is horribly wrong. And my dog has let out a really sneaky fart and left. I can't even show him on camera in all of his cuteness because he just came down here, he farted, and he left.
Gosh, those dogs.
Oh, man. On that note, hey, Steve Scurich, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. If you are watching this show and you appreciate all of Steve's witticisms, you can follow him as Steve at Scurich on Instagram. Steve, what's your favorite movie right now?
Oh man, I'm pretty into Eurovision.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say. It's fun. And Rachel McAdams is absolutely adorable in that film.
It's so good. I like dumb comedies. I love movies like Anchorman and Step Brothers and stuff like that. The way I put it on a text to some folks the other day is that Eurovision is the movie we needed in 2020.
Well, I shall watch it now.
That's a big statement.
It's on Netflix, and it's Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams, and they star as this Icelandic pair who enter Eurovision, a singing competition. And it's just, if you've ever been to Iceland and you like Will Ferrell and his type of humor, it's brilliant. It's like it was written for me. So I like it. My wife hated it. I thought
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
It was fun. It was fun. David Carr, thank you so much for joining us. You can follow David at DavidCarr_photo on Instagram. All of that contact for both these gentlemen is right down below this video. I won't ask you what your favorite movie is because I don't know the answer. We don't have any more time. We're just
it's all right. It would be boring anyway. But thanks for having me on again. I always enjoy this.
Yeah.
Really enjoy the questions and the comments and the chat as well. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening to three guys talk about cameras and stuff for 2 hours.
Yeah, very well said. We will be back. It will be a couple of weeks before we're back. I'm so sorry. Hopefully I'll have a haircut by then and I won't need to do the Andre Agassi look anymore. And by that time, we should know a lot more about the R5 and the R6, and we'll be able to talk more knowledgeably about them and give you our opinions. If you want more information, more content, more stuff, photorec.tv/join or photorec.tv/pen. They both get you the same place to take advantage of that awesome deal. And if you haven't already yet, thumbs up is appreciated. Thank you all so much. We'll see you again sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I have to hit 2 buttons in a row. And